They said no one who entered the River Mother's lake ever returned alive. Yet tonight, Awele, the orphan cursed by her bloodline, walked straight into its glowing depths. In her trembling hands was the last relic of her family, a pendant so powerful it could either save her village or destroy it forever. But when the goddess rose from the golden water and said, "To heal your world, you must give me what you love most," Awele froze, because what she loved most was her own life. And still, she stepped forward. What happened next changed the river, the sky, and every heart that spoke her name again. The night was cold, and the crickets sang a sorrowful song that matched the rhythm of Awele's empty stomach. The wind swept through the small clay hut like a thief, stealing the little warmth left behind. She sat by the dying fire, clutching her mother's heirloom, a small bronze pendant shaped like a moon tear, passed down from generations of women in her bloodline. That pendant was more than metal. It carried whispers of her late mother's prayers and stories her grandmother told under the udala tree, stories of love, faith, and strength. But none of those stories filled her belly tonight. Outside, the village slept. Goats bleated softly, and the distant hoot of an owl echoed like a warning. Awele hadn't eaten in 2 days. Since her parents' death in the strange fever that swept through Umuocha village, she had survived on rainwater and hope. But hope, as she had come to learn, could not be boiled into soup. Her eyes were hollow, her lips cracked. She looked at the pendant again, the only thing of value left to her name. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. "Never part with it, my daughter. It carries your destiny." But destiny meant little when death from hunger waited outside the door. In the nearby marketplace, whispers had reached her of a traveling trader with food, grains, and blankets. He took anything valuable in exchange. Awele's fingers trembled as she held the heirloom to the flickering firelight. The flames danced on its bronze surface, tempting her with warmth and survival. Could she do it? Could she trade her past for another day of life? She stood, heart pounding, and wrapped the heirloom in a piece of cloth. Tomorrow she would find the trader. If only she knew, he was already looking for her. Morning broke with the slow cry of a rooster. The village of Umuocha stirred awake. Women fetching water, children chasing one another through dusty paths. But Awele's heart was heavy. Each footstep toward the marketplace felt like betrayal, not just of her mother's words, but of her own soul. She clutched the small wrapped heirloom to her chest. Its weight felt heavier than ever. Hunger clawed inside her, but guilt gnawed deeper. The market buzzed with life, vendors shouting prices, drums beating softly from a corner, and the smell of roasted plantain teasing her empty stomach. Then she saw him, the trader. He stood beside a wooden cart loaded with goods, yams, dried fish, colorful fabrics. He was tall, with cold eyes that scanned people like merchandise. His name, she later learned, was Okuoma, a man known for bargains that always favored him. "Child," he said, his voice slick as palm oil, "what brings you to trade with the likes of me?" Awele hesitated, clutching the cloth tighter. "I need food, just a little to live." He smiled, slow and knowing. "And what do you have that life could be worth?" When she revealed the pendant, his eyes flickered, only for a second, but she saw it. Greed, recognition, something more. He waited in his hand, pretending indifference. Not much value, but I'll give you enough grain for a week." Awele's breath caught. Only a week? Yet the smell of roasted fish filled her nostrils, weakening her resolve. Her shaking hand accepted the small sack of grain. As Okwoma walked away whistling, Awele felt relief, and then an ache so deep it nearly broke her. By the third day after the trade, Awele's stomach was full, but her heart felt emptier than ever. The grains she bought with her mother's heirloom were already running out. Each time she cooked, the smell of the food seemed to carry guilt with it, whispering, "You sold your mother's blessing." The village women now looked at her differently. Word had spread that she had bartered her family treasure to Okwoma the trader. Some pitied her, others scorned her, but none offered help. In Umuocha, people loved to tell stories, but few loved to lift burdens. When the food finished, hunger returned, fiercer this time. Awele began working for strangers, fetching water, gathering firewood, pounding yam, just to earn scraps. Her once smooth skin hardened under the sun. Her laughter faded, and the sparkle in her eyes dimmed. But deep inside, a small fire of resolve began to burn. "I will rise again," she told herself each night. Years rolled by. Seasons changed. The little orphan girl became a woman, strong, wise, and quiet. She left Umuocha and walked to the nearby town of Unkume, where she learned the art of weaving. Her skill grew so fine that even chiefs sent for her cloth. Soon, her name became known beyond her village. Yet every time her hands touched the bronze color of thread, she felt a sting in her heart, like the pendant was calling her from somewhere far away. Sometimes she dreamed of her mother's face fading into smoke, whispering, "Awele, what was lost must return." One evening, as the sun sank behind the hills, a messenger arrived at her hut. He carried something wrapped in fine cloth and said, "My master says you should see this." Awele's hands trembled as she untied the knot. Inside was the impossible. Awele froze. The bronze pendant glimmered faintly in the dying light, exactly as she remembered, its curved edges, the faint scratch her mother once made while grinding herbs. But how? She had traded it years ago. The messenger bowed. "My master said you'd understand its worth." Who is your master?" Awele stammered. He smiled. "Chief Okwoma of Umuocha." Her breath caught. Okwoma, the traitor, the same man who had tricked her, who vanished with her heirloom, leaving her to starve. The thought burned through her veins like fire. "Why would he send this back?" she demanded. The messenger's eyes darkened. "The chief is dying. He says the pendant carries his curse." Awele's heart thudded. The pendant, her mother's blessing, now a curse? She stared at it, her mind spiraling. Could it be possible? The messenger continued. "He begs you to come to Umuocha before the next moon rises. He says your life and his are tied to that heirloom." Awele's hands shook as she gripped the pendant. All the years she spent trying to forget the past came rushing back, the hunger, the shame, the loss. She had built her life from ashes, and now the past had returned to summon her. That night she could not sleep. The pendant seemed alive, glowing faintly as if breathing with her heartbeat. By dawn, her decision was made. She packed her few belongings and began the long road back to Umuocha, the village that had birthed her pain. As she walked through the thick forest path, birds went silent. Even the wind seemed to whisper warnings. She tightened her grip on the pendant, whispering to herself, "Whatever truth awaits me, I will face it." But deep in Umuocha, Chief Okwoma was already preparing for her arrival, and for the secret he had hidden for 20 years. By the time Awele reached Umucha, dusk had fallen. The same paths she once walked barefoot as a hungry orphan now felt like haunted memories. Villagers whispered as she passed. Some recognized her. Others simply stared at the woman who had once sold her mother's heirloom and now returned wearing fine cloth. She ignored them all. Her heart pounded as she stood before the grand compound of Chief Okuoma. The man who once deceived her was now one of the wealthiest chiefs in the region, his walls high, his gate guarded, his name feared. But that night, his power meant nothing. Inside, the air smelled of herbs and death. The great chief lay on a raffia mat, skin pale and eyes hollow. He looked nothing like the proud trader she remembered. At his side sat his eldest son, Obidi, who watched her with suspicion. Awele knelt silently, clutching the pendant. "So, you came," Okuoma rasped, his voice weak but still heavy with authority. "You called for me," she replied, her tone steady. He coughed, eyes darting toward the pendant. "That thing you hold, it cursed me. From the day I took it from you, my life changed. Riches came, yes, but so did death. My wives died one after another. My fields burned without reason. My nights are filled with the cries of spirits." Awele's eyes widened. "You lied to me. You said it had no value." He gave a bitter laugh. "Because I knew what it was, a sacred heirloom of the Moon Tears clan. I thought I could steal its power, but its blessing turned to poison in unworthy hands." The chief's voice dropped lower, trembling. "The curse can only be lifted by its rightful blood." He raised a shaking finger toward her. "And you, Awele, are the last of that bloodline." Awele froze as thunder rumbled outside. "What must I do?" she asked. Okuoma's eyes rolled back, his lips quivering as he whispered, "You must return it to where your mother found it before the moon disappears." Then his body went still. The chief was dead. The wail of the morning drums began before dawn, echoing across Umuocha. Chief Okuoma was dead. Villagers gathered outside his compound, whispering tales of his greed and the strange woman who arrived the night before. But Awele heard none of it. She sat in silence inside a small hut the chief's servants had given her, the pendant glowing faintly on her palm. "Return it to where your mother found it, before the moon disappears." The words looped in her mind like a haunting song. She had no idea where her mother had found it. The only clue lay in the old stories her grandmother used to tell. The tale of the Forbidden Grove, a sacred forest said to be the dwelling of the spirits of women wronged by men. No one dared to go there. It was a place of whispers and vanishing shadows. Still, something deep in Awele's blood stirred, a pull stronger than fear. That evening, as the sun bled red into the horizon, she packed a small bag, tied the pendant around her neck, and left the chief's compound quietly. Only one person saw her go, Obidi, the chief's son. He followed her from a distance, anger burning in his heart. Awele reached the edge of the Forbidden Grove by nightfall. The forest loomed like a dark wall, its trees twisting into shapes that looked almost human. The air was thick, heavy with a strange hum, as if the forest itself breathed. She whispered, "Mama, guide me." Then she stepped into the darkness. The moment she crossed the first row of trees, the ground shifted beneath her feet. The pendant on her chest turned hot, burning as if alive. Behind her, Obidi stepped out from the shadows, watching. He drew his machete slowly and whispered, "She won't leave that forest alive." The moment Awele stepped into the forbidden grove, the world around her changed. The air grew colder, and every sound, the rustling leaves, the chirping insects, fell into an eerie silence. The trees were impossibly tall, their branches twisting into ghostly arms. A mist curled around her ankles, whispering her name. She tightened her grip on the pendant. "I come in peace," she murmured, her voice trembling. A soft laugh echoed through the fog, a woman's voice, low and ancient. "Peace? You bring with you the blood of betrayal and the tears of your mothers." Awele froze. "Who's there?" From the mist, a figure emerged, tall, graceful, wrapped in flowing white cloth that shimmered like moonlight. Her face was hidden behind a veil of light, but Awele felt it, familiar warmth, the same presence that used to comfort her as a child. "Mother," she whispered. The spirit's head tilted. "You carry my heart on your neck, my daughter. The heirloom you traded for hunger, it was forged from my soul, bound to our lineage. When it left your hands, so did our protection." Awele fell to her knees, tears streaming. "I didn't know. I was starving. I just wanted to live." The spirit's voice softened. "Survival is not sin, child, but every choice carries its shadow. Now you must restore balance. Return the heirloom to its cradle, the stone of tears beneath the udala tree." Suddenly, the forest trembled, the mist thickened, and the voice turned urgent. "Hurry, Awele! You are not alone here!" Behind her, a branch snapped. Obidi stepped into the clearing, his eyes glinting with greed. "So it's true! That pendant brings power. Give it to me." The spirit's glow flickered. "Beware the blood of the thief's son," she warned. Obidi raised his machete. "Then let's see whose blood will satisfy this grove tonight."
The grove fell silent again, so silent that Awele could hear her own heartbeat pounding like a drum of war. Obidi stepped closer, machete glinting in the faint moonlight that seeped through the trees. His breath came in short, angry bursts. "Give it to me," he demanded, eyes fixed on the pendant. "That thing made my father powerful. It should be mine now." Awele rose slowly to her feet, clutching the heirloom. "Your father's greed cursed him," she said. "You saw what it did. Death followed him." He spat on the ground. "Lies! The only curse is poverty. Hand it over before I take it from your corpse." The spirit's glow brightened behind Awele. The air trembled as the woman's voice filled the grove. "The blood of the thief's seed seeks to repeat the sin of his father, but this time justice will not sleep." Obidi laughed bitterly. "You think I fear a ghost?" He swung the machete in the air. The blade cut through the mist, and the spirit let out a sound like thunder cracking across the heavens. The earth quaked. Roots erupted from the ground, twisting around Obidi's legs, holding him fast. He struggled, cursing, but the forest had him now. The spirit turned to Awele. "Blood has been spilled in this grove before, and only blood can cleanse it. To end the curse, a vow must be made, a blood oath to protect, not possess." Awele looked down at her hands. The pendant pulsed like a heartbeat. She understood. She pressed her palm against the pendant until it pierced her skin. Blood dripped onto the earth. "I vowed to restore what was lost, to guard the spirit of my mothers, even with my life." The ground drank her blood, glowing faintly red. The roots released Obidi, throwing him backward. He gasped, terrified, as the spirit's form began to fade. But before disappearing, the spirit whispered to Awele, Your journey is not over. One more must pay their debt. Then came silence. Obidi was gone.
The grove grew still once more. Only the soft hum of unseen spirits lingered in the air. Awele stood trembling, the pendant still warm with her blood. Her eyes darted around the forest floor. Obidi had vanished as though swallowed by the earth itself. She called out, "Obidi, where are you?" Only her echo answered. The silence pressed heavy on her chest. The pendant now glowed with a faint red hue, as if alive. When she looked closer, she noticed something new. A small crack running through its center, pulsing faintly. "The debt of the dead," she whispered, remembering her mother's final words in the dream. "What debt?" Then the wind picked up. Leaves whirled into spirals, forming strange shapes. A voice emerged, this time not her mother's, but a deep, rumbling tone. "You have made your vow, child of the moon tears, but balance is not yet restored. The blood that cursed the pendant still walks the earth." Awele's heart pounded. "You mean Obidi?" "No," the voice answered, "the one who taught him greed, the first betrayer." Awele's breath caught. "Okwoma? But he was dead?" The spirit's laughter was cold and slow. "The dead do not rest when debts remain unpaid. His soul lingers trapped between worlds. His curse cannot be lifted until he confesses before the spirits." Awele's knees weakened. "Then what must I do?" "Go to the place of his burial. Call his name under the moon's last light. If his spirit answers, demand the truth." The wind died suddenly. Awele looked up. The moon hung low and dim, the final night of its cycle. She had only one chance to set everything right. She turned toward the village path, clutching the pendant. But behind her, unseen eyes glimmered in the dark, watching, waiting. The forest wasn't done with her yet.
The moon hung low and bruised in the sky, its pale light stretching across Umuocha's silent paths. The village slept, unaware of the footsteps that crept toward the chief's compound, soft, steady, and filled with purpose. Awele moved like a shadow, her shawl drawn tightly around her. Every sound, the cry of a night bird, the rustle of leaves, felt like the world warning her to turn back. But there was no turning back now. The dead awaited her. Chief Okwoma's grave lay behind his compound, beneath a great iroko tree. The villagers buried him there hastily. Afraid of the curse, they whispered, clung to his name. No one had dared visit since. The wind howled as Awele knelt before the mound of earth. She placed the glowing pendant on the soil and whispered, "Okwoma, son of Nana, you owe a debt to the spirits. Show yourself." Nothing, only silence. Then, slowly, the ground began to tremble. The air thickened. A faint mist rose from the earth, curling into a human shape. The figure took form, gaunt, pale, and hollow-eyed. Chief Okwoma's spirit stood before her, his voice a rasping whisper. You brought me back?" "I came for the truth," Awele said, her heart pounding. "The spirits say your debt is unpaid. Tell me why the heirloom cursed you." Okwoma's eyes glowed faintly. "I was not the first thief. Your mother, She found it in the grove, yes, but she was warned never to keep it. It belonged to the spirits. She disobeyed. The curse began with her, and when I took it, I only fed the fire." Awele's breath caught. "You're lying." The spirit shook its head. "Search your bloodline, child. Your mother's secret is buried deeper than mine." Suddenly, the wind roared, scattering dust over the grave. The spirit screamed, "They are coming!" Awele spun around. Figures cloaked in shadows were closing in from every direction. The ancestors had awakened.
The air turned heavy, thick with the scent of old earth and forgotten things. The shadows that circled Awele took shape. Tall, ghostly figures draped in ancient garments, their faces veiled by mist. Their eyes burned like amber embers, neither kind nor cruel, just knowing. Awele stood frozen beside Okuoma's grave, clutching the pendant. "Who are you?" she whispered. The first spirit stepped forward, voice deep as thunder. "We are the mothers of the moon tears. We watched your lineage rise and fall through greed and sorrow. Tonight, we come for truth." Awele trembled. "Then tell me, what sin have I inherited? What did my mother do?" Another spirit spoke, her tone sorrowful. "Long before you were born, your mother, Nkimdili, entered the forbidden grove in defiance. She sought power to protect her dying husband. The spirits offered her strength in the form of this heirloom, but she swore an oath to return it after 7 harvests." Awele's eyes widened. "She didn't." "She could not," the spirit replied. "She fell ill and died before the 7th moon. Her soul never fulfilled her vow. When Okuoma stole the heirloom, her broken promise became a curse upon both your bloodlines." Okuoma's ghost trembled beside them. "So it was never mine to touch?" The eldest spirit's voice thundered through the night. "Awele, daughter of Nkimdili, the burden now rests with you. The curse can end only when the heirloom is restored to its cradle and when the sins of both families are confessed beneath the Udala tree." The pendant in Awele's hand burned hotter, pulsing like a living heart. "But what if I fail?" she asked. The spirits' forms began to fade into the mist. Their answer came like a whisper carried by the wind. "Then both lineages will vanish before the next dawn." Awele turned toward the forest, heart hammering. The final journey awaited her, and she was running out of time. The night wind whipped through the village like an omen. Awele ran, the pendant glowing against her chest, her breath coming fast and ragged. The spirit's warning echoed in her head, before the next dawn. The path to the forbidden grove stretched ahead, dark and endless. Behind her, the roosters had not yet crowed, but the stars were already fading. The new moon was slipping away, and with it, her chance to end the curse. Her feet bled as she stumbled over roots and stones, but she didn't stop. Memories of her mother's smile flashed through her mind, followed by the image of Okuoma's dying face, then the ghosts circling the grave. Their pain, their greed, their choices, all chained to her now. She whispered between gasps, "I will end this, even if it takes my life." As she neared the grove, a sound broke through the silence, the faint rustle of feet behind her. She spun around. Obidi. He was alive, dirty, limping, eyes wild. "You thought the forest could take me?"
he hissed. "You brought my father back, but you won't walk out of this forest alive." "Stay away!" she shouted, clutching the pendant tighter. "If you touch it again, it will kill you." He laughed, a hollow sound. "Then I'll die rich." He lunged. They fell to the ground, struggling in the dirt. The pendant's glow flared, blinding white. Owele screamed as heat seared her chest. The air exploded with a pulse of light that threw them apart. When she opened her eyes, Obidi lay still. Smoke rose from his body, lifeless, peaceful. The grove around her began to stir, whispering in hundreds of voices, "Hurry, child, the Udalara tree awaits." Owele dragged herself to her feet, tears streaking her face, and stumbled deeper into the forest. Above her, the first hint of dawn began to stain the sky. Time was running out.
The forest grew quieter the deeper Owele went, as if the world itself held its breath. The mist thinned, and in the faint light before dawn, she saw it, the Udala tree. It was ancient, massive, its roots curling through the earth like sleeping serpents. Beneath it lay a flat black stone, glistening as if wet, though no rain had fallen. Owele knew instantly, this was the stone of tears. The pendant pulsed against her chest, brighter now, its heat almost unbearable. She knelt before the stone and placed the heirloom on it. At once, a soft hum filled the air, deep and mournful. The earth trembled, and mists began to swirl into shapes, faces of women, crying, whispering, chanting words she could barely understand. Then one voice rose above the others. "Daughter of Nkandili, you have come at last." Owele bowed her head. "I bring back what was taken. I return the heirloom to where it belongs." The spirit's tone was gentle but grave. "Return is not enough. The curse was born of two hearts, one that took and one that defied. You must cleanse them both." Owele's hands shook. "How?" The stone shimmered and two ghostly figures appeared, her mother, Nkandili, and Chief Okwauma. Both looked lost, their eyes full of sorrow. Her mother spoke first, voice trembling like wind through dry leaves. "My child, I wanted to protect you. I thought I could keep the power of the moon tears to guard our family." Okwauma bowed his head. "And I wanted to control it. I stole what was never mine. My greed chained us all." The spirits around them began to chant faster, the air growing hotter, brighter. Owele raised her hands toward the sky. "Then let their wrongs end with me." She pressed her bleeding palm onto the stone. The pendant cracked open, releasing a burst of silver light that rose to the heavens. The grove erupted in a chorus of wails, part agony, part release. Then silence. When the light faded, both spirits were gone. But the pendant remained, split in two, cold and lifeless. Owele collapsed beside it, whispering, "It's done." Or so she thought.
When Owele opened her eyes, the first rays of dawn painted the grove in gold. The mist had vanished. Birds began to sing again, timid at first, then louder, as if welcoming life back into a world that had held its breath too long. She sat up slowly. The pendant lay before her, broken clean in half, no longer glowing. The black stone beneath it was cool, pulsing faintly as though it had drunk her pain and was finally at peace. The forest no longer felt menacing. The same trees that had seemed alive with anger now stood calm and silent, their leaves glittering with dew. Owele touched the pendant pieces gently, her fingers tracing the cracks. "It's over," she whispered. But even as she said it, a part of her wasn't sure. The pendant had been her last link to her family, to the stories her mother once told, to her childhood. Without it, she felt both free and hollow. As she rose to leave, a soft voice drifted on the breeze, her mother's, faint but clear. "My daughter, the curse is broken, but the lesson remains. The value of a thing is not in its shine, but in the heart that holds it." Tears welled in Awel's eyes. "I understand now, Mama." She turned toward the village path, the broken pendant clasped in her hand. Her steps were steady, her spirit lighter. But as she reached the edge of the grove, something glimmered on the path ahead, a faint light hovering like a firefly. She frowned, stepping closer. The light moved as if guiding her. When she followed, it led her to something half buried in the earth. She brushed away the soil and gasped. It was another pendant, identical to hers.
Aweli's breath caught in her throat. The pendant gleamed faintly under the newborn sun, untouched by time or decay. It looked exactly like hers. Same shape, same engravings, same faint bronze glow that once pulsed with her blood. But this one was whole. Her hands trembled as she lifted it from the soil. The air around her shifted, cooler now, watchful, as though the forest itself was waiting for her next move. "How can there be another?" she whispered. "Wasn't mine the only one?" Then she remembered the words of the spirits. The curse was born of two hearts. A chill ran through her. Could there have been two heirlooms, two fates intertwined? A soft rustle made her turn sharply. From behind a tree stepped a frail old woman dressed in faded indigo cloth, her gray hair braided in long ropes. Her eyes, though clouded with age, held strange brightness. "You found it," the woman said, her voice steady but ancient. "Who are you?" Aweli asked, clutching both pendants. The woman smiled faintly. "I am Adaku, keeper of the grove. I have waited many seasons for the one who would reunite the moon tears." Aweli stared at her, stunned. "Reunite? You mean these two are part of one?" Adaku nodded. "Long ago, before your mother and before Okwoma, there were two sisters. One chose faith, the other power. Each was given a pendant to guard the balance. But when greed divided their bloodlines, the pendants split their purpose. One brought blessings, the other suffering." Aweli looked at the broken piece in her palm, and then at the perfect one she had just unearthed. "Then which is which?" Adaku's eyes softened. "That depends on the heart that wears it." She stepped closer, placing her wrinkled hand over Aweli's. "The curse is gone, child, but the story isn't over. You must decide which pendant the world will remember, the one born from pain or the one born from forgiveness." Aweli looked down at both pieces, her reflection trembling in the bronze. For the first time in her life, the choice was hers.
The forest held its breath as Awele stood between the two pendants, one broken, one whole. Both glimmered softly in her trembling palms. The morning sun filtered through the canopy, painting streaks of gold and shadow across her face. Adaku watched silently, her gray eyes deep with the weight of unspoken truths. Awele swallowed hard. "If I choose wrong, will the curse return?" The old woman shook her head. "No curse can bind a heart that has faced its own truth. The choice is not about fear, but meaning. Which part of your story do you wish to carry into tomorrow?" Awele stared at the broken pendant, the one that had seen her through hunger, grief, and loneliness. It was scarred, just like her. But those scars were her history, her strength. Then she looked at the perfect one, untouched, shining, whole, a symbol of what could have been, of everything she had lost. Tears welled in her eyes. I don't know which is right." Adaku stepped closer. "Then listen not with your ears, but your blood." A breeze swept through the grove, rustling the trees. In its whisper, Awele heard echoes of her mother's laughter, her father's voice telling stories by firelight, her younger self chasing dragonflies near the stream. She took a deep breath, heart steadying. "I choose the broken one," she said finally, "because it reminds me that even what's broken can still hold light." The pendant in her left hand pulsed, softly, warmly, then fused with the unbroken one, forming a single jewel more beautiful than either had been before. Adaku smiled, her eyes glistening. "Then the balance has been restored." But before Awele could speak, the ground beneath her feet trembled, gentle at first, then violently. Birds screamed and fled. The grove shuddered. Adaku's voice rose in alarm. No, this was not meant to happen. Awele clutched the glowing pendant to her chest, just as the earth split open beneath her, and she fell. Darkness swallowed her whole. Awele fell through a tunnel of wind and whispering voices, her mother's cry, her father's laughter, and 1,000 nameless echoes calling her name. The pendant on her chest burned with a strange warmth, guiding her descent. Then, silence. Her body hit something soft. When she opened her eyes, she was lying on damp soil, surrounded by walls that shimmered faintly like moonlit glass. Strange roots twisted above her, glowing blue and white. The air smelled ancient, older than memory itself. She sat up, dazed. The pendant glowed brighter now, illuminating carvings etched into the walls. They weren't random marks. They told a story. A story of 2 sisters. One with eyes like night, who sought to heal. One with fire in her blood, who sought to rule. Their bond had created the pendants, the moon tears. But when jealousy came between them, their love turned to ruin. Awele's heart pounded. This is the origin! She traced the carvings gently. As her fingers touched them, visions burst before her eyes. 2 women arguing beneath the same grove she'd fallen through, one raising her pendant in rage, the other weeping as darkness spread through the land. And then, like a knife of light, the vision shifted. She saw Adaku, younger, kneeling before the sisters, the same pendant hanging around her neck. Awele gasped. She was there! The voice of the older woman filled the chamber, echoing from nowhere and everywhere at once. I was their keeper, their witness, and their failure. Awele turned, and there stood Adaku, her face shimmering like mist, no longer flesh, but memory. You were never meant to see this place, the spirit said, but destiny has opened the way. Awele's voice trembled. Why show me this now? Adaku's eyes glowed. Because the curse was never theirs alone. It runs in your blood, Awele. You are the last descendant of the sister who chose power. Awele staggered back, heart racing. That can't be true. But the pendant's light flared crimson, and the truth burned bright in her eyes. The air in the cavern grew heavy. pressing down on Awele's chest until every breath felt like fire. The pendant on her neck glowed a deep, living red, its light pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Adaku's spirit moved closer, her voice echoing like wind in the tomb. "You carry her blood, Awele, the blood of Ezelu, the sister who chose power over love. Through her, the curse began. Through you, it must end." Awele shook her head violently. "No! My mother was kind. My father was poor but honest. We harmed no one." "Your mother was a child of the other sister," Adaku said gently. "But your father's line came from Ezelu herself. When you traded the heirloom, you awoke the old hunger that had slept for generations." Awele's legs gave way. She fell to her knees, tears stinging her eyes. "So all this, my suffering, the deaths, the curse, it was because of me?" Adaku's voice softened. "Not because of you, child, but because of what you carried unknowingly. The darkness in your blood was never meant to punish you. It was meant to test whether love could still grow from power's seed." Awele's sobs quieted. Her reflection wavered in the pendant's crimson glow. "Then tell me, how do I end it?" Adaku's gaze pierced through the shadows. "By doing what your ancestor could not. By giving instead of taking. The moon tears must be offered freely, not bartered, not owned. Only then will their light rest." Awele clutched the pendant tightly. "But offered to whom?" Adaku lifted a trembling hand, pointing upward. "To the same spirit who first blessed your family, the river mother who gave life to this land." As she spoke, water began seeping from the cavern walls, swirling into a gentle current that formed a narrow path of light. Awele stood, determination flickering in her eyes. "Then I will find her." But Adaku's form began to fade, her voice growing distant. "Harry, child, the river remembers, but it does not forgive delay." Awele turned toward the glowing waterway, her heart heavy with purpose. Behind her, Adaku's whisper echoed one last time, soft, sorrowful, and final. "Do not let power choose for you. Let love guide the end." The path of light beneath Awele's feet flowed like living water, leading her deeper into the earth. The air shimmered with the scent of rain and something ancient, something watching. The tunnel widened until she stood before a vast underground lake. Its surface was still as glass, reflecting the pendant's red glow like fire on calm water. Awele stepped to the edge, heart pounding. "River Mother," she called softly, her voice trembling, "I seek your mercy. I come to return what my blood once took." For a long moment, nothing stirred. Then the water rippled, and from its depths rose a figure cloaked in blue mist, a woman with skin like wet stone, eyes that glowed silver, and hair that flowed like 1,000 streams. Her voice filled the cavern. "Child of the broken line, you dare summon me?" Awele bowed low, clutching the pendant. "I come to make things right." The goddess's gaze was unreadable. "Many before you have said those words. Few understood their price." Awele's voice shook. "Tell me what I must do." The goddess raised a hand, and the water stirred into a whirlpool that hummed with power. "The moon tears belong to me. They were gifts to balance creation, not to serve human greed. To return them, you must surrender what you love most." Awele froze. What did she have left to lose? Her family was gone, her childhood buried in sorrow. Then she realized
She loved her life, the second chance she had fought so hard for. Her breath caught. You want me? The River Mother nodded slowly. Your breath for their peace. Your life for their freedom. Awele's heart trembled. The pendant pulsed, glowing fiercely, as if resisting her hesitation. Then, through the rising hum of the waters, she heard her mother's voice again, soft and loving. My child, even the smallest life offered in love outshines all treasures lost in fear. Awele closed her eyes, smiled through her tears, and stepped into the water. The lake erupted in light.
The moment Awele's body touched the lake, the water exploded in a blinding flash of gold. Waves rose to the cavern roof, carrying her upward like a leaf caught in a storm. The pendant on her chest shattered into 1,000 beams of light that scattered through the darkness like stars reborn. The River Mother's voice filled the air, soft but powerful. Blood for peace, pain for wisdom, darkness for dawn. Awele felt her spirit lift from her body, floating weightless above the water. She was neither alive nor dead, only free. The heaviness that had followed her since childhood melted away. Images swirled before her eyes, her mother smiling by the fire, her father's laughter, the village children dancing under the rain. Even Adaku's gentle face appeared, proud and tearful. Your sacrifice has unbound the curse. The greed of the past is washed away. From your heart, love has flowed into the roots of the land. Awele looked down. The once dark water now shimmered with light, spreading outward, bursting through cracks in the earth to touch the surface world. Far above, the villagers woke to see the river glowing like molten gold. Their dried fields filled with clear water. Their dead crops sprouted green once more. The grove bloomed again, vibrant and alive. And there, on the riverbank, where Awele's body had once lain, rested 2 pendants, one of light, one of shadow, now joined into a single heart. Years later, the elders would tell her story to every child born in the village. They would say, "She traded her heirloom for survival, and in doing so, gave the world back its balance." The pendant was never seen again, but whenever the moon shone over the river, its reflection glimmered faintly, like a reminder that even the deepest sorrow can give birth to light. And so Awele's name lived on, not as the cursed child of loss, but as the girl who mended the broken dawn.
Thanks for watching, family. Please do like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Also, turn on post notification to be the first to get notified when we post next.